Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of the Trailer Music Composers podcast. I'm really excited today because I have a very talented composer called Chris Davey joining me. And those of you in my audience who know Chris, he delivered a fantastic article diving into one of his tracks, which actually landed on two trailers recently, which is, a pretty awesome week, isn't it? So what we're going to do is we're going to talk to Chris about how he became a trailer music composer, and then the usual quick fire round. And obviously, if there's any sort of golden nuggets, we'll dive into those. I'm really excited about this because Chris has been messaging me on Facebook and emailing me, and he seemed like such a nice guy, and I was excited to hear his story. So, Chris, thank you for joining us on the show.
You are more than welcome. It's great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Oh, pleasure, dude. Right, so let's dive straight in for the introductions. Okay. Can you introduce yourself to the audience? Tell them who you are, what you do.
My name's Chris Davey, and I suppose I'm a trailer music composer. I suppose that's my job title. Um, which is quite surreal to say because it's such a kind of high-end uh place to be. I think it's really unlikely to land placements these days because of the competitiveness of the market out there. Um, so yeah, that's kind of what I do, and I suppose I'm an all-round sound nerd. Um, I'm very sound obsessed. So yeah, a lot of my um research and um obsessionality goes into creating sounds and um kind of messing with audio. Um, but also, I mean, a lot of, uh, I suppose, just listening to music and trying to be inspired by music and creating music and everything like that. So that's me. Yeah.
Awesome. If you find yourself sitting at the dinner table tapping the forks, this has got a
Yeah.
nice ring.
Yeah. I do actually tap quite a lot. I tap the table a lot,
Yeah.
which my wife, it's probably quite annoying, but she loves me. So
I guarantee everyone in the audience is going, me too, dude. Me too.
Mm, yeah, absolutely.
If it's not the table, it's the lap or the cushions or the sofa or the steering wheel,
Just sixteenths,
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
always
Yeah.
sixteenths.
Yeah.
Uh,
Dude, so thanks for the introduction. And I am always keen to know how people get into things. It's one of my favorite things about podcasts. Actually, is listen to a podcast and see how people got to where they are. So
yeah,
this is the origin story. How
yeah,
Chris Davey
yeah,
became the trailer music composer.
yeah. I mean, that's quite an interesting story. So I kind of owe it to a guy that I grew up with, who's called Martin Corbett. Um, I grew up with him in Dorset, um, and I spent many years watching him mess around with Logic and plugins like Omnisphere. Um, and he's just, I mean, he always was very talented. He's an incredibly talented composer now, and he is a trailer music composer. I think he works for Audio Machine still, and I think a bit for Elephant as well. Um, but yeah, I kind of watched him just grow into this amazing composer throughout university. And I came down to Cornwall to study. I studied music down here, which was a great experience. From what I remember, there was a lot of boozing, a lot of enjoying myself. And I was more kind of on the performance side of things. So I joined a band in university called the Klezbians, and basically we're this enormous band. It was more than 10 people in the band, and we played Eastern European Jewish Gypsy klezmer music. Is the official way of describing it. Um, and I mean, it was such an unusual style to get into. Um, and at the same time, Martin I think he went to ACM in Guildford. I can't remember what it was, but he was there, and I think he was doing all kinds of music production up there. um and I hadn't seen him in a few years, and we all met up, and it turns out he was doing this trailer music thing, which I didn't even know was a thing. I think a lot of composers have that when they get into it. They don't know that trailer music is this kind of niche area. um but he was doing that, and I think he got some kind of really amazing placement. And uh I was just like, that's a thing, that's possible, that's incredible. And it was really inspiring to hear how well he was doing with that. um and then I just kind of started asking him questions. I kind of probably bothered him more times than I should have done. And but he's a really, really kind chap, and he kind of just gave me a lot of advice. Helped me out with how to get started, what to do. And it was basically, get good. That was the idea. um and yeah, I mean, he, even to this day, his mixes are just unbelievable. He's such a talented guy. So I kind of have a lot to owe him, really, as far as the inspiration for giving it a go. And then, yeah, after university, I became a laborer for 2 years, which was fun. Obviously, wasn't really my passion, so I think I sort of, uh, yeah, I gave that up, and just decided that I was gonna do the music thing full time, which was a little bit crazy, because there's not really, well, there wasn't any money in it for me for the longest time. So it was a bit of a scary move, kind of diving into the deep end like that. Um, and I have a lot of people to thank for that. I have people who help me out with rent, or let me live rent free, things like that. A lot of good friends and family who really supported me, and kind of allowed me to kind of hold down a part-time job, um, and then just compose alongside of that. And it quickly became this thing where I realized that trailer music was, I mean, it's so above my league. I was like, everything that I'm hearing sounds live to me. How are they getting this sound? It seems unobtainable to me. So that was quite scary, kind of going into it. So I sort of, I suppose I started on the lower end, trying to write for TV libraries and things like that. But I quickly became very obsessed. One of the things that Martin used to do was he used to read Sound on Sound magazines. That's what I remember a lot of the time, which I'm sure would probably make him laugh. But yeah, I started reading those. There's so much information in these magazines about um, everything to do with music, production, mixing, mastering. What's an EQ? What's a compressor? What do they do? Synthesis. There's a lot on synthesis. And yeah, I kind of just went into that. I bought loads of the magazines and just read endlessly, and then took that knowledge and kind of tried to apply it into producing music, which usually didn't go so well, but I think I'd normally learn something along the way. Um, so yeah, that was really helpful, just kind of gaining an understanding of what all this crazy technology does, because it was so, as I say, above my league, out of my league. It just didn't really. I think a lot of guys just didn't really know what they were doing. They're kind of diving headfirst in and just giving it a go, which is quite scary, going in, especially with a part-time job and not really knowing if it's going to work out as well. That's a kind of, it's very unnerving, and of course everyone around you says, oh, when are you going to get a job, and all of that. And that was, that kind of made me, I don't know, that definitely got me going. It just made me more stubborn. Just be like, well, I'm just going to work even harder then. um and so that's what I did. I kind of quickly realized that, um nobody's going to help me learn this. I need to really focus my time. And so my my wife was sort of trying to get me out for a coffee on a Sunday, and I wouldn't leave the house because
Chris,
I
can
was,
I just ask,
yeah.
how long ago is this that you're
How
talking
long
about?
ago this? Yeah, this is in 2016.
Ah, okay.
Um, yeah, so coming along 7, 8 years now, something like that. Yeah, probably about winter of 2016 was when I mean, I'd seen Logic, and I knew what Omnisphere was and things like that. It's just that I had no knowledge of it. I really didn't know what I was doing with it. So it was very much kind of, I mean, I'd had a crack at film composing before that during university. Um, and I scored over 100 films for free during university. But it was very, I mean, very stripped back approach compared to the production that I do these days. Um, I started out as a piano player when I was about 11, and I've always played piano. Um, so I kind of use that as my base for film scoring, and um, wrote a lot of very minimal music. And I was very inspired by, Thomas Newman, obviously Hans Zimmer as well. Um, and so, yeah, I just kind of went scoring these films, and almost all of them were for free. But I was really inspired to just try and get into the industry, and obviously create music as well, because that's what it's all about, is just creating great music, and or trying to create great music. Um, so yeah, that was kind of that. And then, yeah, 2016 was when I really got inspired because of what Martin said, and then I really started to try and kind of, I suppose, compose to a bigger template, adding more tracks, layers upon layers. And then eventually I think I got some music into a TV library in the UK, who were called uh, Evolution Media Music. And I believe I was not doing very well for a long time. I was really, really pushing it in 2016. And then I think I was in a cafe in Falmouth, which is near where I live in Cornwall. And I was sort of sat there, and I saw this email that they put out, and I saw this track name. I can't remember what the track was called, but it said at the bottom of the email, it said recent usages, and it was on Top Gear, and the track name was one of my tracks. And I was just like, this is the greatest day ever, because it was on Top Gear, and that was my very first sort of knowledge of any kind of use from my music. And I think I sort of did a little celebration with my wife, um, and she was really proud because yeah, I mean, well, as I said, I hadn't been leaving the house, so she was kind of, what were you doing this for, I'm joking. I mean, she was very, very encouraging. So yeah, that's kind of where that went. And then I joined a library called Gargantuan Music, who are a UK based library, and they work a lot on TV, and they've got a great team of people there. Um, and they just kind of I suppose, my production really wasn't that great then. My writing really was not that great either. But I was really, I think I had this passion to get going, to get writing, and just I had so many ideas. And so Simeon, the guy who owns Gargantuan Music, he just gave me a chance on this album, and I wrote, I think, about 6 tracks for it. And yeah, within a few months, things started getting used a lot on TV, and then from there, it kind of, he started involving me a lot more, and I was building up this catalog of tracks, anywhere from 20 to 50 pieces of music with Gargantuan Music, all the while trying to improve my production. Um, because I really wanted my production to get better, and it wasn't where I wanted it to be for a long time, because I would listen to these pro composers, and just it seemed so unobtainable, the standard that they were writing to. Um, so that was always in my kind of headlights, so to speak. So yeah, that's that.
Okay, right. Before we carry on, I've got questions.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely.
I was like, I'm going to let Chris run. I'm going to write my questions down. Um, okay, we're going to go back to the klezmer. I
Oh
just
yeah.
this is just a point because at uni I used to play klezmer violin.
Did you? No
Yeah,
way. Oh
yeah,
man, that's amazing.
yeah. So when you said that, I was like, when you said the Klesbians, I was like, please say klezmer. Uh, and my follow-up question was, what instrument? But you just said you're a pianist, so I guess it was you were the keys of the band, right?
I was, yeah, and it was so nuts. I mean, people used to go bonkers for the music, you know, because we essentially we I don't know, you know, the band Caravan Palace. Yeah, they're I mean, our drummer, a guy called Will Harris, was unbelievably good at drums. I mean, one of the best drummers I've ever met. And he used to play these really kind of, upbeat. It's like Caravan Palace, basically, with a crazy drummer. And the talent in the band was, off the charts. So
Yeah,
the crowd would go wild, and obviously the crowd would usually very drunk as well. So it was an enjoyable experience all round.
yeah. No, you're playing so fast, no one hears your mistakes. So
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, we ended up playing at the Royal Albert Hall actually,
wow.
at the school's proms. It was like for 10 minutes or something, but that was amazing as well because it was a sold out thing, and I think there was over 5,000 people there. So we are all kind of, gearing up to go on stage, very nervous. But I mean, like I think we nailed it. I mean, the musicianship in that band was just so great, and
Yeah,
they're all great people as well. So yeah, klezmer is it's a really interesting genre to get into. I
yeah,
mean, it's kind of like really going into that world. I mean, it opens up so many possibilities for other music. So
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Awesome. Um, okay, I also just want a side note here. It's really refreshing to hear you be so open and honest about your insecurities in production.
Mm.
Because I always, I mean, still to this day, I'm like, I think to myself, yeah, I'm rubbish. Yeah.
Oh man,
So,
I mean, same here,
yeah.
honestly.
So if you're listening, guys, like, even when you apparently air quotes make it and you land regular placements, it doesn't necessarily mean that that little voice is going to stop saying you could be better.
Yeah.
Listen. Also, the other thing is when you listen to the pros, air quotes pros, you're hearing their finished masters.
Yeah.
So, like, it's a very different thing. Not all composers. Some composers will mix to an exceptionally high quality, but a lot of composers, you hear the mix and then you hear the master and you go, oh,
Yeah.
oh, you
Yeah,
know,
absolutely. I mean, my stuff is now mixed by mastered by mastering houses. Um, I suppose I do 98% of my own mixing. I have worked with Greg Townley before, who is just, you know, again on another level. Like
yep,
my tracks just become something else when his hands are put to the test on those. So yeah, he's incredibly talented. And but yeah, other than that, that the standard of mixing is, I mean, it really does need to be up there, these days. And I think it can be. I mean, I'm not in a I'm just I've mixed in this bedroom for years now. Um, so and my setup is incredibly simple. I have two Yamaha HSO8s, which I think I bought from my friend for 400 quid. They're on wobbly stands. I'm on a very, very makeshift desk. A little MIDI controller, an audio interface, and a monitor, and a good computer. And I've been working on that since 2016. And I'm about to upgrade, which is in itself also quite daunting.
yep,
But I mean, I've got to kind of explore other options now. I mean, I want to start improving and things like that. So, I say that now. It's like I want to start improving, uh, doing this for 7 or 8 years. But I mean,
yeah,
I think with mixing and production, there's always something you can learn.
yeah.
I had a lot of trailer composers who kind of gave me advice back in the day. Another one was Cody Still. Um,
Oh yeah, we've
he
had Cody on the show.
Yeah, he is unreal. His
Yeah,
music is. insane. His mixes are amazing. And yeah, he gave me a lot of advice as well. So I hope I thanked him.
Well,
But
thank him now.
yeah, thank you, Cody. Thank you.
He's been on the show a few times, and he's so nice. And he
Mm,
is one of those. Whenever I say about composers who can mix and master their own stuff,
yeah,
I think of Cody because he can, and he does an exceptional job. So
that's amazing. Yeah, yeah. There's so many skills involved. So, yeah,
big time, big time. Okay, so we're going to go back into the stage when you decided you've been a labourer for 2 years.
yeah,
Now, this is the point that I know a lot of people listening are in, or are thinking about. Is that when you've got money coming in, which is taking up almost all your time and energy with the
yeah.
job? What's the process for then going, you know what? I'm going to dive into this. I'm going to get off the fence and actually pursue this thing. So,
Yeah.
I
Yeah. I
mean,
mean, well, yeah. I mean, I don't know if a lot of people would agree with me here because it's not the most healthy advice to give out. But when I stopped being a laborer, I essentially just kind of went full throttle, um, at this trailer music thing. And I mean, it wouldn't be uncommon for me to be up at 10 a.m. and go to bed at 5 a.m. With maybe a break for a walk or something midway through the day. Um, and I was just absolutely obsessed with trying to turn it into a career of some form.
was this in your spare time or whilst you're working?
Um, yeah, I mean, it was mainly in the spare time, so I'd probably work 1 or 2 days a week on a part-time job. My wife was actually paying my rent for a while as well, because she believed in me, which is, incredible of her.
Yeah, I've been
Um,
there, dude. Let's high five supportive wives.
I-
Woo!
absolutely, yeah, she was amazing. So, um, yeah, and when I wasn't working, I was just, yeah, it was probably anywhere from 16 to 19 hours a day. And then when I was working, I'd probably come home and work till about 1 or 2 in the morning, maybe, and then get up because I needed a good sleep because I was still doing laboring part time. And you need your rest to be a laborer. So um, yeah, that it's really unsustainable to be working those kind of hours. Um, so but I did it anyway, because I wanted to improve, and so I think my level of improvement was kind of, it kind of made sense, I suppose. My mixes did kind of get better relatively quickly, but I would say it was about uh between 1 and 3 years before I got my first big placement, and in the interim it was, the royalties would keep me going, and the part-time job would also keep me going. um so yeah, that, I mean, between 1 and 3 years, I would say, of, I mean, and I'm not going to say that every single day I was doing 16 to 19 hour days, because that's crazy, but I would say that there were a long stints of doing that, and then kind of, maybe a bit less, and it really was tiring.
Yeah.
And I'm not really sure how I did that, but that's what I did. So
Yeah, the drive to escape the current position can be quite intense, to think to yourself, I
yeah,
don't want to be doing this part-time or full-time job. I want to be doing something else. And you kind of pull on these strange reserves of energy that once you get to that point where you don't have that job or full-time job, you're like, how do I ever do that? I just want to take a nap now.
yeah, absolutely. But I think after seeing Martin's success at that period of time, I was like, oh, I didn't even know that was possible. This is really inspiring. This is something that I know I want to do. um you know if anything, I'm going to learn something, and who knows where that will journey will go.
Yeah.
um so yeah, yeah, that was kind of that. And a lot of hard work, and those royalties, I mean, they weren't they take a long time to come in. So that was it was really hard because you kind of like hoping that the next check is going to be bigger. I mean, I was so over the moon when I think my first check was probably like £10 or something. And it just meant so much to me because it's making money from music. I mean, I'm definitely somebody who believes I'm fortunate enough to just be able to make music, um, without taking money into consideration. But to be able to do it for a living was a huge goal. So I really, really, really did want to make that happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So once you got your first big placement, was it
Mhm.
then like, boom, I'm full time, or was it like, okay, money
Yeah.
in the bank, let's see when the next one comes in?
Yeah. Yeah. So, well, my first ever placement was in Avengers Endgame, um, and it
Nice.
was it was a custom TV spot.
Oh
So
wow.
it really was an overnight thing, because I remember I was in this room and I think I had my wife was on her way home from work, and yeah, my publisher sent me a message just basically saying congratulations, um we think you've got it. I mean, it's been picked up on this detection thing. And yeah, I think I just, when she came home, I just said I've done it, and sort of fist bumped the air. And yeah, we opened a bottle of champagne, and it really was a nice moment because it was um, she knew how hard I'd been working, and obviously I didn't really think it was going to happen, to be honest. It was after a long time, you really start that the self-doubt is prevalent. So, and that's really hard to switch that off as well, like I mean, the whole kind of thing is other people around you don't really know if it's going to work out. And they're kind of right to be thinking that way because it's when it's been taking years, it kind of makes sense. Is this really going to work out? But I was stubborn enough to keep going, and yeah, it kind of evidently it paid off. So
Awesome. Well, congratulations, dude. So that was 3 years of part time, and then boom,
yeah,
got the
so I
placement.
think I think that was in 2019. I'd
That
have to
sounds
check
about right
that.
for Endgame, doesn't it? In 2019.
Yeah, I could be wrong. If that's wrong, I've got my timeline completely messed up.
2019. Yeah, I think that's about right, isn't it? 2019 for Endgame. Either way, it's roughly there.
Yeah,
And it's really interesting, isn't it? Because the story is often the same. Work hard and work hard repeatedly for
yeah.
a given amount of time. So I did it. Mine was 7 years of part-time work before. I'd gotten, because I used to do music for adverts before I did music for trailers. So I'd landed a few adverts, and that money I sort of kept aside, and because it was so inconsistent, the fear just kept me from doing it. And then I
Absolutely.
landed a big global advertising campaign. I was like, okay, I'm leaving.
This is it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, fantastic. So when you were doing the part-time thing, how did you get contacts? How did you sort of start reaching out to these TV libraries?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was usually via email. And I would have I would really focus on trying to produce just one or two really, really good tracks, focusing on production and the idea as well. The idea musically is so important for kind of grabbing the attention. I mean, I always kind of assumed that these publishers that I would be contacting would probably turn it off within the first 10 or 15 seconds because of how busy they were. That was my assumption. I don't know if that's the case, but yeah, so I would always try and just, send two tracks via email. I'd do my research on Facebook and on their website as well, find out what placements they were getting, and also listen to the music that they're putting out there. Um, and then if it's kind of like, well, this is similar to the music that I'm producing, I feel like I'm kind of either on par or maybe hopefully a bit better than the music that they're putting out. Maybe they they might actually want this music from me. And so, yeah, I mean, I sent it. I mean, that's so much more the case with trailers, with trailer libraries. It's like, I really need to blow their socks off. And I've had so many times that that has not been the case. I've sent off music and it's just been, even after getting quite a lot of placements, I've sent music off and I haven't heard back. But that could be from, you know, other circumstances. Maybe their roster is full, maybe they're too
Yeah.
busy. But with TV, it was very much, an email or potentially Facebook Messenger, finding out who owns the library, maybe dropping them a polite message, just really kind of straight to the point. This is who I am. This is what I do. This is my music. I'd love to work with you. And also doing the research into, their most recent placements is a good idea, because yeah, it can kind of, I suppose maybe it comes across quite spammy if you're just kind of like, hey, I want to work with you. It's so out of the blue. You've got to really, you've got to want to work with the library that you're working for as well. So, I think kind of doing your research and just being like, hey, I really love this placement that you got. It works really well. I'm a composer. And then you kind of go into it and just keep it brief and to the point. That was my process. And yeah, even by doing that, I still didn't hear back from a lot of people. So
Yeah. So what you've just described is the way I often tell people to approach libraries is the research thing first, because you could be the best at dark horror music for trailers. But
yeah,
if you approach the wrong library, they're not going to work with you because they don't do dark horror trailers.
yeah, yeah,
Like,
absolutely.
so,
Yeah,
and as you say, although experience helps, experience and having placements under your belt does not mean the doors are open.
yeah, yeah. No, you're totally right. Yeah. Um, yeah, I mean, with yeah, as I say, with the TV stuff, it's I mean, I found that they kind of did a bit of everything, um, for the most part. So, I could kind of, I don't know, practice my chops. Oh, let's explore this new genre. I've never done horror before. Let's give it a go. Um, oh, that's awful, but I'm still giving it a go. I'm learning something. I'm learning about sound design and things like that. I mean, sound design was kind of, um, I suppose, a focus of mine for a while. Because I was really not very good at producing the orchestral stuff, um, until I really got, it took a deep dive into orchestration and just practicing endlessly all the time, trying to get the music sounding better, which I still don't know if it does sound that great, but um, who knows?
Too modest, Chris. Too modest.
I don't know, man. It's literally like we just did the company that I work for called Evolving Sound. We've just done Mission Impossible, the trailer for that. And like I was listening to the short strings on it and I was like, oh, it sounds really like muddy. And what reverb am I using? What have I done here? And I'm just like, I'm kind of hypercritical of my stuff. So um but I think that that's a good thing. It means that I'm always learning, and I really do want to try and get better with my production value. And yeah, I think that there's always ways of getting better. So
Uh, just a note for the listeners: if you do want to dive into Chris's production, he was very very kind to supply an written interview about his track "Dream City," which it landed on the Ruby Gilman
Gil,
trailer. Thank you.
yeah,
And at the same time, I forget how to pronounce the name of it. What's it called again?
Chupa or Chupa.
Chupa, that one. Okay, so it landed on two
Yeah,
trailers
yeah,
at once. So, but and I was having a look at trailers. I heard this track. I thought this track is bloody great. I'm going to reach out to the composer, found out who it was. Chris Cosby. He sent this fantastic post about how he did it, and there are some absolute nuggets in it. Golden nuggets, of course, not chicken nuggets. And so if you're interested, I'll put a link in the show notes. But it's really interesting to take a peek at your production values when you're writing your track. So when I was reading that, I was like, oh, I don't look at it like that. That's a good take. And it's really interesting to see other people's takes on things. Because
Yeah.
I think although, I see the benefits of being critical of your work, it's a double-edged sword, isn't it? Because
Mm.
you can be critical of your work to the point where you improve it, or you can be critical of your work where you just rip it apart.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, you hit the nail on the head there, I think. I mean, I definitely threw a lot of tracks away years back, and I really rarely do that now. And I think that's through um I think it's working off the basis of hooks and signature sounds and things like that. I spend kind of a long time really trying to refine the kind of the identity of the track, the skeleton of the track, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And often that starts with a sound which, from the get-go is going to be this, what is that? That's the reaction that you want. You want this, what is that? Like, even if it's weird. I've done weird tracks before, completely, gone, like I've used like dishwasher sounds and things like that and mangled them into something interesting. And I found that those tracks do get placed because it's kind of like, I go imagine an editor kind of scrolling through and just being like, right, that's a piano start, or maybe it starts with this low bram sound or whatever, and then they come across something which is just like, wait, what that's totally bizarre. Um, and it's kind of like then you get them interested, and then you add in more ear candy, more interesting sounds and things like that, and it's kind of becomes a journey for the listener, I suppose. And that's really important, I found. I'm really obsessed with interesting sound sources, and I will go to great lengths to find interesting sounds. So um
And how
yeah.
do you record those sounds? What do you record it on? What mics do you use?
I use well, I have this Zoom. I know people probably can't see this, but I've got a Zoom H4.
I'll put it on YouTube so people can see it. So if
Oh,
you're
cool.
listening, guys, this is on YouTube if you want to see it.
Yeah, Zoom H4, which is it's
Yep.
just amazing. And I've also got AKG C414, a stereo pair, the only mics that I've ever had. And they are really, really good. I use them to record vocals and things like that. But the Zoom H4 is very much, I recently recorded in a tunnel, did some vocal work in a tunnel, and I've made my own instruments. I've recorded pianos, things like that. I destroyed a piano as well, which was pretty horrendously chaotic. But I got some amazing sounds out of that, which are probably on horror trailers around. So yeah, I mean, those devices. I mean, the thing is with the trailer music thing is, if it starts going well, then the pressure is on to write more, and constantly be putting out new ideas and things like that. And that's really hard to keep up with the demand of that. So I kind of like having the Zoom H4 because it gets me out of the house, it gets me away. And then when I'm away from the computer, I start kind of thinking about sounds. And then when I find those sounds, I can bring them back here, put them on my computer, and just import them into Logic and then kind of start mangling. Like sometimes the sounds themselves don't need a lot of mangling because they're already, I kind of went out there with the intention of finding something really, really interesting and engaging, which is what I did when I got this. I think it's a barrel. It's 100-liter barrel that was designed to hold pomegranates, or pomegranate seeds, and it's empty, obviously. But
Oh, shame.
yeah,
Nom 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 nom.
yeah, I just ate them all.
Yeah.
But no, a friend of mine who's a carpenter, he helped me kind of attach a guitar neck to one side of it, and then another piece of wood on the other side, and I then got hold of some piano wire, and then kind of threaded it through this barrel, and the whole barrel acts as this resonance chamber. And then I have a double bass bow and a cello bow, and then I go up there and bow it, and it's instant, horror music. It's for trailers, like you've got like I've just got so many sounds now that are perfect for trailers. Just off the bat from the first second.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, there's a lot of focus on that. And I always encourage, newcomers to try and get out there and get recording, because I think that there's a lot of excitement in that, and it gets them away from the whole kind of using presets and things like that, which really do have their own uses. But one of the things that I want to do for this, I've got an album to do for next summer, and it's a real big orchestral album. And I don't want to do the same thing that I keep doing, so I'm looking to hire out a choir for that. But I'm probably only going to get a small choir, so it's quite an intimate thing. But I'm going to get them to do really unconventional sounds and things like that, because I'm kind of like, well, why not?
Yeah.
It's that's for me, it's kind of like that's where creativity begins, I think, is doing crazy things like that. So that's my that's my process, I suppose. I'm always interested in going places and finding sounds, because you never know what you're going to find along the way. And then also, when you bring it back into a production music context of creating good trailer tracks and things like that, I think it makes you stand out a bit more, because that nobody else has got that sound. That's your sound. And if you then go and mangle it in Logic and add your distortion compressors and reverbs and filters and things like that, then it's you can really create something unique. And that's what trailers need. They need these unique sounds, as far as I can tell anyway. I think they also need the conventional thing as well. But that's obviously been done. It's been tried and tested. So I like to try and stand out. But yeah.
I'm going to jump in
Okay.
because you have raised three excellent points, which you've highlighted again just now. The idea of, or not necessarily authenticity, but bringing yourself or something unique to the music. And right at the start of the start of the interview, you said about it being very competitive. And that makes it sound really scary. But if you follow Chris's advice and focus on a unique sound first, boom, your job is done. Like, that is the thing that will get the attention. And oftentimes, that is the thing that will either win you a placement or get taken as a stem and used on its own. So I couldn't agree more. Like 2 thumbs up, guys, for this whole like recording your own sounds and going and finding unique instruments or creating your own. I think it's so important.
Yeah.
I do also want to. There's 2 more things you talked about, which you kind of lightly glossed over them. Is that time away from your computer, because that headspace is the thing that allows the ideas to come back in. If you're kind of focused in on the process of writing, you're not paying attention to what's coming in. Not, those ideas aren't coming in as freshly and as easily, or at least you're not noticing them. So stepping away from the computer is, so important. I know it's difficult when you're doing customs, isn't it? Because you're kind
Yeah.
of wall to wall computer work. But, when you're working on albums, a couple of hours writing and then go for a walk, or, do something analog, play with a synth, play on the piano, do something interesting that's different, and it just kind of switches it up. Because Chris, you mentioned when you start getting some placements, people start saying to you, "Hey, can you do solo albums?" And we all naturally go, "Yeah, I'll do that solo album." But what happens when you start to get solo album after solo album after solo album? And speaking from experience, when I did back to back, I don't know, a year of, I don't know, it was 15 albums maybe in a year, and
Wow.
it completely frazzled me. I almost think I'm still recovering from that. It was,
That's insane. I mean, I think it was last year I did 4, and that almost killed me. So 15, I mean, that's amazing. Like,
yeah,
you know,
I mean, it's great, but the problem is, I was saying yes to everything.
yeah.
And then you stop losing that ability to step away from your computer and have that creative space. And also you stop losing the ability to enjoy the thing you're doing because you're like, I've got to get this next track done. I've got to finish this next album. It's really like, ah,
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I think especially as well for trailer music, there's it's really important to focus on doing less but better.
yeah,
Um, I mean, I think that, just a few placements or a few tracks really that are just ultra high quality, um, they can make a lot of money, and gather up a lot of placements if they're done correctly. But doing it correctly is really hard.
yeah,
And there's guys out there who do it way better than me. I hear some stuff out there and I'm just like, how is that possible? It's like, that's crazy. um but yeah, I mean, it's so hard when you're starting out as well, because I think for me it was like, I feel like I can kind of write trailer music um musically, but my production just isn't, it's nowhere near up to scratch. And I feel like it's almost like I couldn't even hear what I needed to hear for so long because my ear wasn't attuned um to mixing efficiently. So that really took a lot of just producing, finishing tracks, making sure that I get it finished, move on to the next one, keep doing that, keep trying to improve with every track, and then keep trying to improve my mixing ability as well. And just production all round, as well as orchestration. I mean, it's a big list, but if you really, really focus and try and hone that in, for a few years, you know,
yeah,
eventually your ear starts hearing things, and you start kind of being able to, well, I'm going to make this decision because I can hear that's not quite right. um so yeah, yeah, I think that can be helpful, really.
yeah, absolutely. I think, listening to other people's mixes and other people's tracks, although it can be dangerous, I know I've definitely started listening to other people's music and then just gone into like a deep spiral of like, oh my God, everyone's so good. I'm so terrible.
Yeah,
Why do I even bother?
me too.
Uh, so, as much as it is important, it is vital that that is next to your constant practice of writing and mixing. And as you say, finishing tracks. If you get into the practice of finishing a track, it's much easier to finish a track, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely think there's something to be said for that. Um, it's kind of, I also have this thing where I start an idea and I just like, I think it was even recently because I'm writing a bunch of tracks for, we're recording in Vienna, end of next month. So I'm writing a bunch of tracks for that. And I started one out, I think a couple of weeks ago, and I was like, what is this? This is just the usual kind of like, this is nothing new. I'm not really liking where this is going. I actually thought about binning it, and then I sort of I stayed with it, and
Yeah,
because I've done that before, I've stayed with an idea, and then about a week later, I'm like, you know what, I'm really glad that I stayed with this because
yeah,
this is sounding okay now.
yeah,
And I think that's kind of that's the reason that's the reason that getting into a habit of finishing tracks is so important, because you learn to kind of go, well, this idea might not sound that great, but if you really kind of you know persevere, then by the end of a couple of weeks time, you might have something which is really good you
yeah,
know
yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about a couple of placements. You've had quite a few recently, haven't you? So,
Yes, yeah, I have. I've been lucky enough to, yeah.
well, that's exciting because the thing is, it's really nice to sort of hear this progression of working hard. So you get that first placement, and then there's that kind of strange lull when you
Yeah,
first go full time of like, oh no, when's the next one coming in? And then the
yeah,
moment you start, then you start to catch up like the royalties. You just keep working and they kind of start to catch up with you. and the placements start to get, if you keep putting the work out, keep doing it. So how have you found it building your reputation from that first placement? And was that first one with Evolving Sound, or was it?
No, the first one that I got for Avengers, or the first two that I got were both for Avengers, and they were with DOS Brains
Okay.
within a few weeks of each other. And that kind of, I suppose, set the precedent for me. Is just kind of being like, well, this is, it's kind of helping me out financially to be able to do this. And then from then it was kind of this, I suppose narrowing down my libraries to a small list of really, really talented people, mainly trailer focused, because I really wasn't expecting those placements. And then, I think that fortune of getting those two placements really then gave me the time to focus on writing new material. And so, if anything, it made me kind of work harder, because I was like, well, let's try and get more. Having more can't be a bad thing. So, uh, then, eventually I contacted Evolving Sound, who are, they've done so much for me, and they are amazing people, some of the friendliest people I've ever met. And also SPM Music, Colossal Trader Music, and people like that. So yeah, I kind of just got to work really, kept trying to write more material. And then I think there was a bit of a lull in placements for about a year. It wasn't like, it was kind of one every sort of 4 months, maybe 6 months, something like that. And that kind of kept me afloat. And it was only really, I think, in the last maybe 2 years that it's sort of stepped up a gear.
Yeah.
I think around the time we did Doctor Strange, the official trailer for that last year. And around that time it all just kind of, it just kind of kicked off really. But I had been so hyper focused on making as much good music as possible and really focusing on those key hooks, those key signature sounds. And then, then it's kind of gone from a placement every few months to a placement every week, sometimes every few days, when I have a good month, I suppose, which is great, and then sometimes it just stops and it's kind of like, oh, okay. But I mean, this is the thing, when you're a newcomer, it's so hard to to keep this going when placements are just, it's such a high risk, high reward. They are not consistent, or at least they weren't for me when I was starting out. And now that they are consistent, obviously I'm fortunate enough to be able to do this full time, and I don't take that for granted. I really try and produce good music as much as I can. But yeah, when you're starting out, it's you can't really count on trailer music. It's kind of like counting on a lottery, basically.
Yeah, that goes for a lot of media music, actually. Writing music for advertising as well. Same thing. A lot of free pitching, or at least like low paying demos,
Yeah,
and fingers crossed. And the same with library. You produce stuff, some will pay you up front, some won't, and you don't, at least a year until you see any royalties.
yeah,
And that goes to, okay, corporate films. I don't know whether, I don't deal with corporate anymore, but corporate was a little bit better because it was direct payment for your service, but very,
yeah,
very low pay.
yeah,
you know. So yeah, I think you're right. And that's why so many of the composers I speak to have a part-time job or a full-time job until boom, boom, boom.
yeah, yeah,
But
absolutely.
I do also want to highlight the fact that even when you get to that point when you get a few placements every day, or not every day, woohoo, a few placements a week, which is not a common situation. When you get to that point, sometimes it will suddenly just stop for two,
Yeah,
3 months. And then all of a sudden you'll have another round, and then it'll stop for it's even when you think it's predictable, it's not. So, you know,
Yeah, it's so random, and really, I mean, this kind of brings me on to customs,
yeah,
and how, I suppose, unviable they are. It's like there are things that, I mean, obviously, first and foremost, the music has to be mind-blowing, um, and you have to be able to write it potentially within 12 hours. I've had many jobs like that, custom jobs where I've just had to crack on and be quick and still produce something which blows everyone's socks off, hopefully. Um, and it's real kind of crunch time, and you start out like, how am I going to do this? I can't do this. And then you just have to start writing. Um, and I think customs are a great way to get your workflow better. You can kind of get faster at writing and things like that. But there are things that seem to be just completely out of your control, from higher up in the food chain, I suppose, where you could, produce something which you're like, oh man, this is really good. And maybe even the editor is giving some feedback like, this is, they're really liking this. This is really great. And then, the trailer comes out and it's someone else. And I mean, that's the first few times that happens, it's pretty crushing.
yeah,
Because you're like, oh man, like, I really thought I was in with the shot there. um but that's kind of the way it goes. There's all it takes is one person to be like, oh, can we maybe change the music here, and then your track might be gone. And there's just things that I think are kind of out of your control. So I don't recommend customs to anyone starting out, really. I just think it's, unless you're crazy, by all means go for it. um you know
thick-skinned, thick-skinned.
yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, obviously, like, my first two placements were customs. But that's, I mean, I don't really, I think I was very, very lucky to have that happen. I don't, I think that it's far more worth your time putting your energy into album releases for trailers specifically, and at the same time working away at TV and things like that. But there really has to be an emphasis on production value for trailers. It really has to be, you know, you kind of have to really believe that it's live, and it has to be believable and authentic, um and have that anticipation and tension and building throughout the whole thing. And it really needs to fit into that, um I suppose, niche set of parameters.
yeah, yeah,
If that makes sense.
absolutely. Yeah, no, it does. Custom is almost a different job, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It's like yeah, or at least it's the same job, just with everything squashed.
Yeah, it's the same job, just like quicker.
Yeah, same job, quicker, and with an awful lot more pressure. You
Yeah,
can't spend a week writing a track that you then sort of push to the back of your list because it's not doing it for you. Like you say,
yeah,
12 hours, boom, go. Ah,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I've done it. I think I've done some of them even faster, but there's some of them where it's not even feasible to do it within, a day.
yeah,
There's too much work involved. And usually I'd say I'd have a couple of days, but I like getting the product to the client as quickly as possible. So I really work through I kind of really work with that being my primary focus. I want
yeah,
to I want to deliver something amazing as quickly as I can, because I always just assume they probably need it yesterday. And if I go with that intention, then normally I get some feedback and things, but I don't count on it, because as I said, there's things that are potentially out of my control. So there's not that much point in getting my hopes up and getting excited. And if it does come off and it all lands and everything, then that's fantastic. But
yeah,
it's just not, it's really not great for your self-esteem to kind of get your hopes up and then for it not to happen. you know
yeah.
um the downhill is a lot worse than the uphill. So yeah.
Yeah, lots of sad music playing in your own personal film score.
Yeah, yeah. You then go and write something really somber to make yourself feel better.
Exactly. Which could be good. Maybe that's it. Maybe do one trailer custom and then an album of somber background music.
Yeah.
Your two niches.
Yeah.
Um, okay, dude. Let's move on to the quick fire round. 'Cause this
Okay.
you've talked yourself up as an audio nerd, and I know there's a lot in the audience who get as excited not about me, as excited as me about hearing what tools everyone uses.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, yeah.
yeah. Okay. So I just like quick fire round. The capital of England. Okay. That is actually quite an easy one. Damn it.
Let's go.
Yeah, that's it. Correct. Okay. So this is your go-to gear, basically. So let's start with go-to piano.
Oh, I use Fazioli Grand from I don't actually know the library. I think I wrote it down for you somewhere. Um but it's Fazioli Grand. It might be
Is it
Imperfect.
imperfect
Yeah,
samples?
that's the one.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just really great. Like it sounds amazing out of the box. It sounds real. And um I also use Spitfire's got like a free soft piano. I think I've had a few placements with that being used on it. Um and yeah, that's really, really pretty good. It's
I,
just I mean it's free, that's
yeah.
amazing. So yeah, that's kind of I mean I'll swap it out for other pianos. I do a lot of live piano recording, but mainly more sound design and things like that, and
Yeah.
trying to find unique stuff. So
Yeah. So yeah, my first 5 trailer music albums were soft piano, and
oh, amazing. There
it
you
was
go.
that piano library used on every single track. So yeah,
Amazing.
that's a winner. Okay, go to brass.
Oh, there's quite a few there. Yeah, so I use Metropolis Arc 1 quite a lot. I'm using them a lot at the moment. And I've had the library for ages. I use Cinesample's Cinebrass on everything. They have amazing patches. The 12 horns patch, the monster brass patch, I think it's called. The tube is great. The trumpet's great. Use them a lot. I also use Performance Samples Angry Brass, which is amazing. The trombone patch is incredible. In fact, I use everything from Performance Samples. That whatever they're doing is working. It's amazing. So, and I must use something else. Metropolis Arc also have their bass trombones have this short brass stab, and it's just like it cuts through everything. If you layer it with your drums, it's like it takes your head off. So that's great. Um, yeah,
Yeah, Chris has killed many a music supervisor with that sample.
yeah, absolutely. I think that's about it. There's probably something else I use. Oh, trailer brass as well, from musical
Yeah,
sampling. They're
yeah.
really good. Yeah, there's quite a lot there, but
Okay, yeah. Well, you are admittedly breaking the rules by giving me more than one, but I'm going to take it.
uh, that's it. I
Oh
do waffle
well,
a lot.
it's a multi-sample patch. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Okay, go to strings. We'll keep it strings rather than shorts and longs because
Okay. Yeah. So again, performance samples, fluid shorts,
yeah,
and uh, CSS cinematic studio strings for longs and shorts. Pacific strings, performance samples, longs and shorts. Um, yeah, and Metropolis Arc 1 again. Their low strings are unreal.
yeah, I do like their low strings too. Yeah, I wasn't. Maybe I should go back to it. I wasn't a fan of fluid shorts. I bought it and I was like,
Yeah.
oh, but maybe I need to go back to it. I think
Yeah.
I find that sometimes you'll hear a library one time and be like, not impressed, and you go back to it and go, ooh.
Yeah. Yeah. It could just be me. I mean, I layer it a lot, but yeah, I like everything they do.
Yeah. Well, clearly. Okay, go to drums. Not
Oh,
kits here, not kit, but
I'd say okay, if I had to pick one library, it would be Damage 2. Um, that's just amazing. And Cerberus, is it Cerberus? Is that how you say it? I don't know. From Audio Imperia.
yeah, it's Cerberus is I can't remember whether it's Greek. I think it's Greek. The
Yeah.
the three-headed dog that guards the underworld. So yeah.
Okay, there you go. Yeah, that just punches through everything. Um, and there's a lot more drums I use. I mean, I swap so much stuff out, you know, I find a lot of drum patches and load them up and then just be like, oh, that's not really what I'm after here. And try and change it from track to track. But Damage 2 and Cerberus, yeah, you know, they're kind of my two key ones that just punch through.
Okay, go to synth.
Omnisphere,
One or two.
L2, yeah. And
I don't,
all of its extensions and you know, Spectrasonics do a lot of extension packs and things like that. And that everything they do is kind of it's like my thing. I couldn't function without Omnisphere.
yeah, I do love Omnisphere. In fact, I haven't got Omnisphere 2, but I've got this like weird issue that I need to sort out and I keep forgetting to, but that I loaded all my Trillion patches into Omnisphere. Now Omnisphere is like cannot compute.
Oh no.
So I'm like, oh no, I can't be bothered to contact Spectrasonics, but I can't use Omnisphere.
Yeah, I also use Serum as well. Serum's great.
Okay, yeah, cool. Right. Now we're gonna go to effects plugins. Now we're gonna limit it to 3.
Okay.
Because I'm not talking like mastering things. I'm talking about those plugins that you will always use. And
Okay.
there is definitely 3 to 5 plugins that every composer will, if they're loading up effects onto their channel strip, they're going, you know, I could do with a little bit of Santor's little plate here. Plop. You
Yeah.
know, that, like, for example.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, okay, well, I go Fab Filter Saturn.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just I
What's
use it on so much stuff.
what's that one?
It's like a saturation plugin, but you can make it like really clean and dial in the mix and stuff like that. And I use it on drums and it brings the drums to life. It's mad. Really, really useful. I'd say Sound Toys Echo Boy. Um, I couldn't live without that. And Valhalla Room. So those, which is a reverb, and those are three, my three that I probably use the most, I would say. I love delays as well, so I'm kind of obsessed with uh working with delays with Echo Boy. So
Yeah. I I I do love delays too. I think that's the guitarist in me. It was always, you know, loads of delay and
yeah,
goes, "Ooh, I
yeah,
wonder if I can make myself sound like the Edge from U2."
definitely.
Yeah. Okay, and last question before I let you go back to your daily life, which is if you were to give one piece of advice to an aspiring Triller composer, what would that be?
Oh man. Um, well, I mean, it's kind of cliche, but I suppose like, yeah, just work really hard at it if you want to do it. And yeah, the extensions of that, which are research heavily. And by work hard, that should encompass everything to do with trailers, the sound, the authenticity, the research, the orchestration, the mixing, all of it kind of comes under that umbrella of put your all into that specialist area. And I think that probably being with a shot, you know.
Okay, hard work and one-pointedness, you know, laser
Yeah.
focus.
Yeah. I mean, I could say so much about it, but I mean, it's a quick fire round. So,
Yeah, yeah, audience, if you're still not sure what he means by hard work, listen to the interview again. You know?
or just like find me on Facebook Messenger and just,
Yeah,
you know, ask me because I know I
yeah.
normally like get questions and stuff. So I don't
Imagine
mind.
that. Chris, what's hard work?
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah. The thing is, it is one of those, I'm sorry to say it, but it is one of those really annoying answers. And I'm not saying that because I find it annoying. I find it, you know, well, although I do sometimes find it annoying, so I hear someone say it, but it's more just like a, damn it, where's the cheat sheet, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. No shortcuts.
No shortcuts. That's it. That's it. But the thing is, it's so worth the work is so worth it because, you know, I'm sure you can testify. You listen back to your work years ago, or even last year, the year before, and you go,
Yeah.
I'm a
Yeah.
little bit better now.
Yeah. Yeah. I kind of constantly feel that way. you know. I don't really think that will ever change, but you know, maybe from like 6 years ago, I'm kind of like, yeah, okay, it's a bit better now. Yeah, I mean, it's constant, you know, it's constant every day improving and
Yeah,
learning. So yeah,
right. Dude, thank you for that sage advice. Thanks for taking the time to do the interview.
thank you
And
for having
I'm
me.
sure everyone loved it. So,
It's a pleasure, honestly. Thank you very much.
my pleasure.